So I've just taken delivery of this, the Tender Nova MW6 home mesh Wi-Fi system. And in this clip, I'm going to explain why I bought it, unbox and install it, and let you know if it's proved a suitable solution for the Wi-Fi coverage problem I'm experiencing at home, because maybe that will help you out. Coming right up. Hello there, my name is Carlos. I'm a producer, director and content creator based near London, and my channel Feel Good Footage is all about how to create better content, whether that's technique, workflow or equipment. I want to help you make better content. Now, my background is broadcast television, so I'm very happy and comfortable with video production, but I'm not, by my own admission, a network engineer. However, in my own household, I am the first point of contact if there are ever any problems with the Wi-Fi, and maybe you're in the same position. So I wanted to make a clip for people pretty much like me who are competent, technically minded, but aren't network engineers. They just want to improve the Wi-Fi coverage in their own home. So let's get down to it. So here's our current situation in terms of internet provision and Wi-Fi coverage. We're with Virgin Media, as they seem to offer the fastest download and, more importantly for me, upload speeds with their fibre optic broadband. I have to say, over the years there's been too many outages for my liking, but in my experience you just have to pick a poison when it comes to internet service providers in the UK. None of them are great. I just did a speed test on my Office PC, which is plugged into a gigabit network switch connected via Cat5 cable to the Virgin hub. These are the results I got. It's asymmetrical. You get, as a rule of thumb, about 10% of your download speed as your upload. I thought that's the norm everywhere, but the other month I mentioned that to a guy from New Zealand, and he was quite surprised because he said over there in New Zealand it's typically symmetrical in that you'll get pretty much the same download as upload, which strikes me as fantastic. For me, upload is far more important than download. Once you've gone past a minimum sort of 50, 75 in terms of your download, upload's much more useful for me because I've got to be sending files to people and uploading video, that sort of thing. I'd be interested in hearing, if you're outside of the UK, what's the situation in terms of the ratio between download and upload? Is it asymmetrical like in the UK, or is it pretty balanced in that you're getting comparable upload and download speeds, which strikes me as the better situation? Let me know in the comments below. The Virgin Media Hub is situated under a staircase on the ground floor in a space used for shoes and coats. The hub is in one of those little cabinet cases that's usually wall mounted. That seemed like a good idea when we moved into the house, and it does keep all the cables and the switcher tidy, but as was pointed out to me by a visiting engineer, in terms of Wi-Fi, that metal box the hub is sitting in is only going to hinder the Wi-Fi coverage it can output. Unfortunately, we can't just relocate the hub, as it has to connect to the fibre optic cable which comes into the house at this point. So it has to stay in that location, and the point of this exercise is to try and improve the Wi-Fi coverage using another means. Close to the hub, the Wi-Fi coverage is strong. Here's a speed test done on my mobile phone. I consistently get over 200 download and about 20 up. As you'd expect, as you move further away from the hub and the Wi-Fi signal has to overcome solid barriers like brick walls, well, the quality of that Wi-Fi connection drops off. Even in a room relatively close to the hub, the Wi-Fi can be patchy. And in this room, we've got a 4K smart TV that does a lot of streaming and a games console. And most frustrating for me, my side of the bed is just on the edge of any reliable connection. So when it does connect, these are the sorts of speeds that I can get when I'm just sitting in bed looking at something on my phone. As I say, it's just at the very limit of a reliable Wi-Fi connection from the hub. So too often it drops out. and I'm plagued by this symbol. Our solution until now has been to use these TP-Link powerline adapters, which provide internet connection from the hub sent via domestic electricity cables. We've got 3 of them. They've been okay, but they've always been a bit flaky in terms of stability. And there's been some issues with iOS devices and these adapters. And the unit that we have currently plugged in our bedroom seems to have stopped working reliably altogether. So that's the reason I decided to give this Tender Nova system a try. I only heard about Mesh Wi-Fi when a Virgin engineer visited to troubleshoot an issue I was having with the hub. I took the chance to ask him for a recommendation to improve my coverage. He was a big fan of Mesh Wi-Fi and recommended this brand in particular. And since this was in no way connected to Virgin Media, in other words, he wasn't going to gain anything from the recommendation, it gave me more confidence and I decided to investigate. To improve Wi-Fi coverage, your first action should be to optimize the position of your Wi-Fi router. As I said, mine's tethered to a short fiber optic cable, but you may have more flexibility. After that, your choice is between a Wi-Fi extender, often called a repeater, or mesh Wi-Fi. The TP-Links I have are a type of extender. The advantage is that they are generally cheaper solutions, well suited to improving small problem areas. Some of the cons are that setting them up can be more complicated than you'd expect. You'll also probably end up with a separate network you need to switch over to manually as you move around. Very often it will have the suffix _ext. Finally, the connection is unlikely to be as fast or reliable as a good connection to the main router. Mesh Wi-Fi is intended to work seamlessly across your property. You connect once to the mesh network, and in the background your device will be switched between nodes as you move around. The units that comprise the mesh network, the nodes or satellites, include some really smart technology that makes the communication and data traffic flow between them more efficient and the system more robust than Wi-Fi extenders. In general, you can expect better connection speed performance, but obviously the starting point is determined by the quality of what you receive from your internet service provider. The only major downside I can see is that mesh systems are more expensive than extenders. Included with the Tender Nova MW6 kit are 3 identical nodes, each with their mains power adapter and 1 Ethernet cable. There is a 2-node version available which is cheaper if you need to cover a smaller property, but more nodes means more coverage. And that being the case, you can also buy additional single nodes if you want to increase your coverage. One of the claimed advantages of mesh Wi-Fi is that it's meant to be easier to set up than standard Wi-Fi extenders, which I was hoping was true. And fair enough, the Quick Start Guide seems straightforward, with well-written English text. First, you need to install the Tender Wi-Fi app and grant relevant permissions. Very easy. In the meantime, note the default Tender SSID network name and password, which is shown on the bottom of each node. Next, choose one of the units to be the primary node. It doesn't matter which. This is going to connect to the router, in my case the Virgin Media hub. I believe if you have a wide network, which I do, you could connect to one of the Ethernet sockets instead, but I decided to connect into the hub. However, in this case I'm going to keep the primary node on top of the cabinet case, so the Wi-Fi signal doesn't first have to clear the metal. Once hooked up and powered on, the node should very quickly stabilize to a continuous green light to show the connection. Then you simply connect to the Tender Nova network using the temporary password you've already noted down. Next, you open the Tender Wi-Fi app. You're immediately prompted to change the name of the network and create a new password. And notice in my excitement I misspelt Tender, which will probably bug me now every time I see it. I guess I can change it in the app. Once you've renamed the network and created your own password, you simply have to disconnect from the default Tender network and join the new one you've just created. It's very straightforward. So once that's connected, you simply need to position and power on the other 2 nodes. Placement is very important for best coverage. You're advised to not have more than 2 walls between nodes and elevate them if possible. I put one on the next level of the house on a window ledge with line of sight to my bedroom. Note, you should probably avoid something like a plant pot next to the node, which I moved later. We're having some construction done right now, so I haven't even installed the 3rd node because it's going to go downstairs at the rear. So with only 2 of the 3 nodes installed, I tested Wi-Fi coverage, and this is what I got at various locations. My number one objective was to get a stronger, more reliable connection in bed and also for the games console area downstairs. In that, this Tenda Nova mesh Wi-Fi system has absolutely delivered. I've only had them up and running for a few days, but they are clearly a major improvement in terms of my Wi-Fi coverage. And these aren't even the most expensive units. If you want to spend more on mesh Wi-Fi, you can pay for tri-band communication functionality, mine a dual band. The advantage of the tri-band being that the nodes can use a back channel to communicate between themselves, making the transmission of the user's data less cluttered. Plus, more expensive mesh systems incorporate the next-gen Wi-Fi 6 standard. However, since I've got a fast wired network I'm very happy with, I thought this more modest mesh system would do what I needed, and so far it's not disappointed. Very easy to install. I can wander from the front of the house to the back and across different floors, and it's a seamless connection as I move between the nodes. On my phone or other devices, it all just appears as the same Tenda Nova network, or in my case, Tenda Nova. That is about it for this clip. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something along the way. If you did, a like would be fantastic, as would be any comments, any questions, any suggestions. You can please stick those down below. I really enjoy reading those, are the responses to the videos I make, and I do try and answer questions just as soon as I possibly can. As I said at the beginning, I'm not a network engineer, but I am fairly comfortable with video production. And if watching a clip like this makes you feel, you know what, I'd like to make my own clip about something I feel strongly about, something I feel passionately about, but the idea of actually stepping out in front of a camera and doing it yourself maybe is something you're not particularly comfortable or confident with. Maybe it's something you've never done. Well, if that's the case, I suggest you take a look at the clip that's on screen right now, where I take a deep dive in all things to do with filming one of these clips, equipment, lighting, but most importantly, the delivery, which is the absolute foundation of making a clip that is going to be something that people will enjoy and want to watch. Speaking of which, thank you again for watching this one.